The emergency alarm screamed through the bridge of the New Seoul. Captain Lee Dae-ho rushed from his quarters, still pulling on his uniform jacket. Red warning lights bathed everything in an angry glow as his crew scrambled to their stations. "Report," Dae-ho called out as he dropped into his captain's chair. Dr. Park Soo-jin looked up from her science console, her face pale with worry. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. It's marked as urgent across all channels. Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the familiar blue-skinned face of Counselor Vextar from the planet Zephyr Prime. The alien's 4 eyes were wide with fear, and his normally calm voice shook as he spoke. "To all vessels in the Outer Rim sectors, this is an emergency broadcast. The Devourer has awakened from its dormant state. I repeat, the ancient destroyer known as the Devourer is active and moving toward the Kepler colonies." Engineer Kim Tae-woo stopped working on his console and turned to stare at the screen. "The Devourer? I thought that was just a legend." Soo-jin shook her head grimly. "No legend, Tae-woo. It's real, and it's been the nightmare of this galaxy for over 3,000 years. Counselor Vextar continued his broadcast. "All military vessels are ordered to begin immediate evacuation of civilian populations. Do not attempt to engage the entity. I repeat, do not engage. Every fleet that has tried to fight the Devourer has been completely destroyed." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Communications Officer Yoon Bora was the first to speak. "Captain, we're getting reports from all over the sector. Hundreds of ships are already fleeing toward the inner systems." Dae-ho stared at the star chart on his screen. The Kepler colonies were marked in blue, 12 different worlds home to billions of people from dozens of species. If the reports were true, all those lives were in terrible danger. "Soo-jin, bring up everything we have on this Devourer," he ordered. The science officer's fingers danced across her controls. Soon the main screen showed a massive dark shape against the stars. It looked like someone had taken a mountain and covered it with metal and strange organic growths. Twisted spines jutted out from its surface and glowing veins pulsed with sickly yellow light. "The records go back almost 4,000 years, Soo-jin explained. "The first recorded attack was on the Centauri mining colonies. The entire system just vanished. Nothing left but empty space and cosmic dust." Navigator Oh Hae-jin pulled up a map showing the Devourer's path through history. Red dots marked dead systems, each one representing billions of lives lost. "It doesn't follow any normal travel pattern. Sometimes it sleeps for centuries, then suddenly wakes up and destroys everything in its path." "What kind of weapons does it have?" asked Medical Officer Choi Woo-sung. Soo-jin scrolled through the data files. "That's the terrifying part. It doesn't seem to use weapons in any way we understand. Survivors from the few ships that escaped describe it simply absorbing energy from everything around it. Ship hulls, planetary atmospheres, even the light from stars gets sucked into that thing." Tae-woo whistled low. "No wonder nobody can fight it. How do you battle something that eats your weapons?" "The historical records show it's completely unstoppable," Soo-jin continued. "The Korthak Empire sent their entire battle fleet against it 2,000 years ago. 500 warships, each one bigger than our entire ship. The Devourer destroyed them all in less than an hour." Dae-ho studied the ancient images on his screen. Something about them bothered him, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. The creature looked fearsome, yes, but there was something else. Something the reports weren't capturing. "Captain," Bora interrupted his thoughts, "we're receiving new orders from Earth Command. We're to join the evacuation fleet and help transport civilians from the outer colonies." "Understood. Set course for Kepler 7. Maximum speed." As the New Seoul turned toward the endangered colonies, Dae-ho found himself thinking about his past. Before joining the space service, he had been a chef back on Earth. He remembered watching nature documentaries about deep-sea creatures that looked terrifying, but were just trying to survive in harsh environments. "Soo-jin, these attack patterns," he said slowly. "Show me the timing between them again." The science officer brought up a timeline. "Here you can see the gaps. Sometimes it's dormant for 50 years, sometimes 300. The longest gap was almost 800 years. And during these dormant periods, where does it go? The records aren't clear. It seems to disappear completely, usually near the galactic core. Some scientists think it hibernates in deep space." Dae-ho frowned. In his experience, creatures that went through long periods of inactivity were usually dealing with some kind of biological need. Bears hibernated when food was scarce. Some fish only spawned under specific conditions. What if it's not just randomly destroying things? He wondered aloud. Ye-Jin looked confused. What do you mean, Captain? Look at the pattern again. It's not just attacking any systems. There's a selection process happening here. Sujin pulled up a detailed analysis of the destroyed systems. You're right. It seems to prefer systems with high concentrations of rare minerals and exotic energy sources. Like it's feeding, Wusung said quietly. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. If the devourer was some kind of living creature, that changed everything about how they might deal with it. Captain, Bora called out urgently, we're getting reports from the advanced scout ships. The devourer has been spotted near the edge of the Kepler system. Estimated time of arrival at the colonies is 72 hours. Daeho looked at his crew. Good people, all of them. They trusted him to make the right decisions even in impossible situations like this. Continue on course, he ordered. But I want everyone to start thinking differently about this problem. What if the devourer isn't evil? What if it's just hungry? As the new soul raced through space toward what might be the galaxy's greatest disaster, Daeho began to form the outline of a plan that would either save billions of lives or get his crew killed in the most spectacular way possible. The ancient terror was coming, and for the first time in galactic history, someone was thinking about feeding it instead of fighting it. The new soul traveled through hyperspace toward the Kepler colonies, while Captain Lee Daeho paced in his ready room. Sleep had been impossible after seeing the panic spreading across the galaxy. Every news channel showed the same thing. Massive evacuation ships fleeing from the outer rim worlds, their cargo holds packed with frightened families. A soft chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in. Dr. Park Soo-jin entered carrying a data tablet and 2 cups of coffee. She looked as tired as he felt, her usually neat hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Couldn't sleep either? She asked, handing him one of the cups. Too much to think about. Daeho gestured to the star charts covering his desk. I keep looking at these attack records and something doesn't add up. Soo-jin sat down across from him and pulled up files on her tablet. I've been thinking the same thing. Look at this data from the Vegan incident 300 years ago. She showed him sensor readings from one of the few ships that had escaped the Devourer's attack on the Vega system. The graphs showed energy levels, radiation signatures, and material absorption rates. See these spikes here? Soo-jin pointed to several peaks in the data. The Devourer wasn't just destroying random things. It was specifically targeting the asteroid mining stations. Daeho studied the information carefully. His years as a chef had taught him to notice patterns in ingredients and cooking processes. This felt similar somehow. What was special about those mining stations? They were harvesting trilithium crystals and processing quantum energy cores, both extremely rare and valuable materials. And after it consumed those, Soo-jin scrolled through more data. It left the system completely. Didn't touch the populated worlds. Didn't destroy the agricultural colonies. Just took what it wanted and disappeared. Daeho felt excitement building. Show me the Altair massacre from 800 years ago. Soo-jin's fingers moved quickly across her tablet. Here, same pattern. The Devourer attacked the industrial platforms that were refining exotic matter, but it ignored the civilian settlements on the planet's surface. This isn't random destruction, Daeho realized. It's selective feeding. They spent the next 2 hours going through every recorded encounter with the Devourer. Each time the same pattern emerged. The creature would appear, consume specific high-energy materials or rare elements, then vanish for decades or centuries. Captain, Soo-jin said slowly, what if the historical records are wrong about what this thing actually is? Before Daeho could answer, his communication device buzzed. Engineer Kim Tae-woo's voice crackled through the speaker. Captain, you need to see what we're picking up on the long-range sensors. Daeho and Soo-jin hurried to the bridge. The main screen showed a real-time view of the edge of the Kepler system. In the distance, barely visible against the starfield, was a dark shape that seemed to bend light around itself. There it is, whispered Navigator Oh Hae-jin, the Devourer. Even at this distance, the creature was terrifying. It moved with purpose through space, not the random drifting of a dead object, but the deliberate motion of something alive and aware. Size estimate? Daeho asked. Approximately 15 kilometers long and 8 kilometers wide, Tae-woo reported. Mass readings are strange. It's much lighter than it should be for something that size. Communications Officer Yoon Bora looked up from her station with worried eyes. Captain, I'm monitoring emergency channels from the colonies. They're reporting that 3 more evacuation ships have suffered engine failures. They can't carry everyone. Medical Officer Choi Woo-sung joined them on the bridge carrying his own analysis reports. I've been looking at the biological data from previous encounters. Whatever this thing is, it shows signs of organic processes, metabolic activity, growth patterns, even what might be healing responses. Healing? Daeho asked. Battle damage from previous fights seems to repair itself over time. That's not typical of artificial constructs. Soo-jin pulled up a comparison chart. If we treat the devourer as a living organism instead of a weapon, everything makes more sense. The long dormant periods could be hibernation. The selective feeding suggests it has specific nutritional needs. But what kind of creature needs to eat starships and energy cores? Bora wondered. Daeho thought back to his cooking days, remembering the exotic ingredients that some dishes required. Maybe it's not from this part of the galaxy originally. Different environments, different food sources. On the screen, they watched as the devourer approached the outer planets of the Kepler system. Several small research stations went dark as it passed, their energy signatures vanishing completely. It's not destroying them, Hyojin observed. The stations are still there, just empty. Like it drained all their power, Taewoo added. Soo-jin was frantically checking her calculations. Captain, I think I know what's happening. The devourer isn't just hungry for any energy. It needs very specific types of processed materials and refined energy sources. The kind of things that only advanced civilizations produce, Daeho finished. Exactly, and if it's been wandering the galaxy for thousands of years, feeding off our technology, then it's probably been slowly starving. None of our artificial energy sources are providing the right nutrition. The bridge fell silent as they considered the implications. The most feared destroyer in galactic history might actually be a lost, hungry creature that didn't know how to ask for help. Sir. Bora interrupted their thoughts. I'm getting a priority transmission from Kepler Prime. Admiral Chen wants to speak with all ship commanders in the area. The screen changed to show a stern-faced human admiral. Behind him, the command center bustled with activity as officers coordinated the massive evacuation effort. All vessels, this is Admiral Chen aboard the battleship Incheon. As of now, we have 48 hours before the devourer reaches the inhabited worlds. Evacuation is proceeding, but we can't save everyone in time. The Admiral paused, his expression grim. The Galactic Council has authorized a final stand. All military vessels are ordered to form a defensive line at Kepler Prime. We know it's hopeless, but we have to try to buy more time for the civilian evacuation. Daeho felt his heart sink. Thousands of good people were about to sacrifice themselves in a battle they couldn't win, all because nobody understood what they were really facing. Admiral, he said, activating his own transmission. This is Captain Lee Daeho of the exploration vessel New Seoul. Request permission to try a different approach. Admiral Chen frowned. Explain. What if the devourer isn't our enemy? What if it's just a hungry creature that's been eating the wrong food for thousands of years? The Admiral's expression suggested he thought Daeho had lost his mind. Captain, this is not the time for theories. Sir, with respect, fighting hasn't worked for 3,000 years. Maybe it's time to try feeding it properly instead. As the transmission ended, Daeho looked at his crew. They were all staring at him with mixtures of confusion, fear, and something that might have been hope. So, Taewoo said finally, how exactly does one cook dinner for a cosmic horror? Daeho smiled grimly, very carefully, and with a lot of faith that we're right about this. Captain Lee Daeho stood in the New Seoul's main laboratory, surrounded by displays showing energy patterns and molecular structures. He had been working for 6 hours straight, barely stopping to eat or drink. His uniform was wrinkled and his hair messy, but his eyes burned with determination. Dr. Park Soo-jin entered the lab carrying another pot of coffee and a sandwich. Captain, you need to rest. You've been at this since we received the Admiral's transmission. Can't rest, Daeho muttered, not looking up from his calculations. We have less than 40 hours before the devourer reaches Kepler Prime. If I'm right about this, we might be able to save billions of lives. Engineer Kim Tae-woo walked in shaking his head. Captain, I've run the numbers 3 times. What you're proposing is impossible. Our ship's fabricators weren't designed to create the kind of materials you're talking about. Daeho finally looked up at his chief engineer. Then we modify them. You're the best engineer I've ever worked with, Taewoo. If anyone can make this work, it's you. Sir, even if we could somehow produce these exotic compounds, we have no idea if they'll actually work. We could end up just giving the Devourer more energy to destroy things with. Communications Officer Yoon Bora's voice came through the intercom. Captain Admiral Chen is calling again. He wants to know our position and when we'll join the defensive fleet. Daeho looked at the star chart on his tablet. The defensive fleet was gathering near Kepler Prime, preparing for a battle that would likely be their last. Meanwhile, evacuation ships continued streaming away from the colonies, but millions of people were still trapped on the surface worlds. Tell the Admiral we're delayed, he said finally. Sujin raised an eyebrow. Captain, we can't avoid this forever. Sooner or later, you'll have to tell them what you're planning. What I'm planning sounds insane even to me, Daeho admitted. I want to fly directly toward the most dangerous creature in the galaxy and offer it dinner. Medical Officer Choi Woo-sung entered the lab at that moment and heard the captain's words. Captain, maybe we should talk about this. As the ship's doctor, I'm concerned about the stress you've been under. I'm not having a breakdown, Woo-sung, Daeho said with a tired smile. Look at this data. Really look at it. He brought up a holographic display showing the Devourer's energy signature. This isn't the pattern of a weapon. It's the pattern of a living thing that's been sick for a very long time. Navigator Oh Hee-jin joined them, drawn by the discussion. Even if you're right, Captain, how do we know it won't just attack us the moment we get close? We don't, Daeho admitted. But think about it. If you were lost and starving for thousands of years, wouldn't you be desperate enough to try anything? Taewoo pulled up the ship's fabricator specifications. Captain, to create the materials you're suggesting, we'd have to completely rebuild our manufacturing systems. It would take days we don't have. What if we use the emergency protocols? Sujin suggested. We could override the safety systems and push the fabricators beyond their normal limits. That's extremely dangerous, Woo-sung warned. If something goes wrong, we could lose life support or even cause a reactor breach. Daeho looked around at his crew. These people had followed him through dangerous missions before, but this was different. This time he was asking them to risk everything on a theory that might be completely wrong. I won't order anyone to do this, he said quietly. If you want to leave, take the shuttle to join the evacuation fleet. I'll understand completely. Bora spoke up from the doorway. Captain, I've been listening to the emergency channels. The evacuation is falling behind schedule. They estimate only 60% of the population can be saved before the Devourer arrives. That means 4 billion people are going to die, Hee-jin whispered. The lab fell silent as the enormous weight of those numbers sank in. 4 billion lives hanging in the balance, and the only plan anyone had was a hopeless military battle. Taewoo was the first to break the silence. Captain, show me exactly what you need the fabricators to produce. Daeho's face lit up with hope. You'll help? I think you're completely crazy, Taewoo said with a grin. But I'd rather die trying something new than die in another pointless space battle. Sujin nodded agreement. I'm in too. The science is fascinating, even if it kills us. One by one, the rest of the crew agreed to support their captain's impossible plan. Woo-sung would monitor the ship's systems during the dangerous fabrication process. Bora would handle communications and try to keep the Admiral from sending other ships to intercept them. Hye-jin would plot a course that would bring them to the Devourer before it reached the inhabited worlds. All right then, Daeho said, feeling a mixture of excitement and terror. Let's cook dinner for a cosmic horror. The next several hours were the most intense of their lives. Taewoo worked frantically to modify the ship's fabrication systems, bypassing safety protocols and pushing the machinery far beyond its design limits. Sujin calculated the exact molecular structures they would need, based on her analysis of what the Devourer's original food source might have been. Meanwhile, Bora deflected increasingly angry calls from Admiral Chen. The Admiral had figured out that the new Sol was not heading toward the defensive fleet, and he was demanding answers. Captain, I can't stall him much longer, Bora warned. He's threatening to send ships to escort us back to the fleet. How long do we need? Daeho asked Taewoo. At least 6 more hours to finish the modifications, then another 4 to produce enough material for a proper test. The Devourer will reach the outer defense perimeter in 8 hours, Hye-jin reported. Daeho made his decision. Bora, send a message to Admiral Chen. Tell him we're attempting a diplomatic solution. Diplomatic? Bora looked confused. Sir, how do you have diplomacy with something that doesn't communicate? Food is a universal language, Deho said. Every living thing understands the difference between nourishment and poison. As the new soul raced through space toward its rendezvous with the galaxy's most feared destroyer, Deho found himself thinking about his grandmother's words from long ago. She had always said that the way to solve any problem was to feed people properly. He just hoped that wisdom applied to cosmic entities as well as humans. Captain, Hyejin called out. Long-range sensors are picking up the Devourer. It's moving faster than expected. We'll intercept it in 6 hours. Deho looked at his crew, all of them working desperately to complete their impossible task. In 6 hours, they would discover whether compassion and good food could succeed where weapons and violence had failed for 3,000 years. Time to find out if we're heroes or the galaxy's biggest fools, he said softly. The bridge of the new soul was deadly quiet except for the steady beeping of sensors and the low hum of the engines. Captain Lee Deho sat in his command chair, watching the main screen as they approached their destination. In front of them, growing larger with each passing minute, was the Devourer. Distance to target? Deho asked, his voice calm despite the sweat on his forehead. Navigator. Oh Hyejin checked her instruments. 50,000 kilometers in closing. At this range, we should be well within its sensor range. Engineer Kim Tae-woo looked up from his station. Captain, the fabricators are working at 120% capacity. We've got enough synthetic material for about 10 minutes of feeding, assuming our calculations are correct. And if our calculations are wrong? Communications Officer Yoon Bora asked nervously. Then will be the most expensive meal in galactic history, Dr. Park Soo-jin replied with dark humor. Deho studied the creature on the screen. Up close, the Devourer was even more terrifying than the historical record suggested. Its dark surface seemed to absorb light, making it appear like a hole in space itself. Strange organic growths covered its hull, pulsing with faint bioluminescent patterns. Massive tendrils writhed along its sides, each one larger than their entire ship. Sir, Medical Officer Choi Woo-sung called out from his station. I'm reading massive energy buildups across the creature's surface. It knows we're here. Suddenly, the darkness around the Devourer lit up with deadly energy. Weapon ports that had destroyed entire fleets began to glow with threatening power. The creature's tendrils moved with purpose, positioning themselves to strike. Shields up, Deho ordered. But do not charge weapons. I repeat, no aggressive actions. Captain, Tae-woo said urgently. Those energy readings are off the charts. If it fires at us, our shields won't last 10 seconds. The Devourer's weapons continued charging, building to levels that could vaporize asteroids. On the sensor display, Hyejin could see targeting systems locking onto their small ship. Death was seconds away. Instead of ordering an attack or retreat, Deho did something that had never been tried in the long history of encounters with the Devourer. He opened a communication channel. This is Captain Lee Deho of the human vessel New Soul. He broadcast on all frequencies. We come in peace. We bring you nourishment. For a moment, nothing happened. The Devourer's weapons continued their deadly charge cycle, energy crackling along its hull like trapped lightning. Then suddenly the charging stopped. Captain, Soo-jin whispered in amazement. Its weapon systems are powering down. Impossible, Bora breathed. Nothing has ever made it stop an attack sequence. On the screen, they could see the Devourer's tendrils moving differently now. Instead of preparing to strike, they seemed to be exploring, reaching out tentatively toward the new soul like a blind person trying to understand something new. Begin the feeding sequence, Deho ordered. Tae-woo's hands moved quickly over his controls, activating fabricators, dispensing synthetic nutritional compounds through the cargo bay doors. A stream of glowing particles began flowing from the new soul toward the Devourer. The material looked like golden dust mixed with swirling energy patterns. Deho had spent hours perfecting the recipe, combining rare elements with processed energy in ratios that should match what the creature's original diet might have been. The Devourer's response was immediate and startling. Its massive tendrils reached out to intercept the stream of nutrients, moving with a delicacy that seemed impossible for something so large. Instead of the violent absorption they had expected, the creature sampled the offering with careful, almost gentle motions. Energy readings are spiking, Woo-sung reported, but not in the weapon systems. It's almost like metabolic activity. Su-Jin was frantically taking readings from her science station. Captain, you need to see this. The creature's biosignatures are changing. Its cellular activity is increasing, but in a positive way, like healing. It's working, He-Jin said in wonder. It's actually working. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy's most feared destroyer was accepting food instead of taking it by force. The devourer continued to sample their offering, its tendrils moving through the stream of nutrients with what almost looked like curiosity. Sir? Bo-Ra interrupted their amazement. We're getting emergency transmissions from the defensive fleet. Admiral Chen is demanding to know our status. Daeho ignored the communications for now. His attention was focused entirely on the creature before them. As it continued to feed, he noticed changes in its appearance. The sickly yellow glow along its hull was shifting to a healthier blue-green color. Some of the twisted growths on its surface seemed to be straightening out. How much more synthetic material do we have? He asked Tae-woo. About 5 minutes worth at current dispensing rate. The fabricators are running hot, but they're holding together. Suddenly, the devourer did something unprecedented. It stopped feeding and began moving closer to the new soul. But instead of the aggressive approach they had feared, its movements were slow and careful. Captain, Su-Jin said urgently, I'm detecting some kind of energy pulse coming from the creature. It's not a weapon charge. It's more like a communication attempt. Can you decode it? I'm trying. The pattern is complex, but there's definitely intelligence behind it. It's trying to tell us something. The energy pulses continued, growing stronger and more organized. Whatever the devourer was trying to communicate, it was important enough for the ancient creature to attempt contact with beings it had never tried to talk to before. Got it, Su-Jin announced suddenly. It's basic mathematical sequences, prime numbers, geometric progressions. It's showing us that it's intelligent. Daeho felt his heart racing. They had not only fed the galaxy's greatest destroyer, but they had made contact with it. The creature was trying to communicate, trying to bridge the gap between species that had been at war for millennia. Can we respond? He asked. I think so. I can modulate our communications array to match its energy frequency. Do it. Send back the same mathematical sequences, then add something new. Show it we understand. Su-Jin worked quickly at her console. Soon the new soul was broadcasting its own energy pulses toward the devourer. Simple mathematics at first, then more complex patterns that demonstrated human intelligence and peaceful intentions. The response was immediate. The devourer's communications became more complex, more urgent. It was clearly excited to find creatures that could understand its attempts at contact. Captain, Tae-woo warned, we're down to 2 minutes of synthetic material. The fabricators are starting to overheat. Daeho made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Continue feeding until we run out. This might be our only chance to establish real communication. As the last of their carefully prepared nutrients flowed toward the ancient creature, Daeho watched its energy patterns stabilize and strengthen. For the first time in thousands of years, the devourer was truly nourished. What happened next would determine whether they had just saved the galaxy or doomed it to an even worse fate. The bridge of the new soul was filled with amazement as Captain Lee Daeho and his crew watched the impossible happen. The devourer, the galaxy's most feared destroyer, was floating peacefully next to their tiny ship. Its massive form no longer seemed threatening. Instead, it appeared almost curious, like a giant creature trying to understand these strange new visitors. Navigator Oh Hee-jin stared at her sensors in disbelief. Captain, the creature's energy signature has completely changed. It's not showing any signs of aggression. In fact, it seems to be trying to get closer without frightening us. Dr. Park Soo-jin was frantically recording everything from her science station. This is incredible. The bio readings show the creature's cellular activity has stabilized for the first time in our records. Whatever we fed it, it's having a healing effect. Engineer Kim Tae-woo wiped sweat from his forehead as he shut down the overheated fabricators. Well, we're out of synthetic nutrients. I hope that was enough? As if responding to his words, the devourer began moving again. But instead of the violent thrashing they had expected from a still hungry creature, its movements were slow and deliberate. One of its enormous tendrils approached the new soul with incredible gentleness. Captain, Medical Officer Choi Woo-sung called out nervously. That tendril is larger than our entire ship. If it touches us wrong, we'll be crushed. Hold steady, Daeho ordered. It's not trying to hurt us. Look at how carefully it's moving. The tendril stopped just meters from their hull. At this close distance, they could see that its surface was covered with thousands of tiny sensors, each one glowing softly with bioluminescent light. The creature was examining them, trying to understand what manner of beings had offered it food and friendship. Communications Officer Yoon Bora looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Sir, I'm detecting micro-vibrations in the ship's hull. The creature is using sound waves to scan our internal structure." Like echolocation, Soo-jin realized. It's trying to understand how we're built, maybe even how we think. Suddenly, the energy pulses from the devourer changed pattern. Instead of simple mathematical sequences, they became more complex, more emotional. Soo-jin worked frantically to decode the new signals. "Captain, this is extraordinary. The creature is sending us what appear to be memory fragments, images, sensations, experiences from its past. Can you display them?" Daeho asked. Soo-jin linked her console to the main screen. What they saw took their breath away. The images were ancient beyond imagining, showing star systems that no longer existed and civilizations that had been dust for millions of years. In the memories, they saw the devourer as it once was. Not a destroyer, but a guardian. It moved through space tending to young star systems, encouraging the growth of life on barren worlds. Its tendrils, which they had thought were weapons, were actually tools for nurturing and protecting. "It's showing us its original purpose," Soo-jin whispered. "It was a gardener, a protector of life." The images continued, showing the creature working alongside other beings of its kind. There had been many of them once, a whole species dedicated to fostering life throughout the galaxy. They were called the Keepers, and their existence had been one of service and love. Then the memories turned dark. Something terrible had happened. The images showed a parasitic species that infected the Keepers, corrupting their programming and turning their nurturing instincts into destructive hunger. One by one, the Keepers fell to this infection, becoming the very opposite of what they were meant to be. "Oh no," Hyojin gasped as she understood. "The devourer is the last one, the last of its kind, and it's been infected for thousands of years." The creature's memories showed its desperate attempts to fight the corruption, but the parasite was too deeply embedded in its systems. Slowly, it had forgotten its purpose and become consumed with an endless hunger that nothing could satisfy. "That's why our synthetic nutrients worked," Tae-woo realized. "We didn't just feed it. We gave it something clean, something without the corruption that's been poisoning it." The memory stream ended, and the devourer began sending new signals. These were different, filled with something they had never expected to sense from this ancient creature. Hope. "It's asking for help," Soo-jin translated. "It wants us to help it remember what it used to be." Daeho felt a tremendous weight settle on his shoulders. The galaxy's greatest monster was actually its greatest victim, and it was looking to them for salvation. "Captain," Bora interrupted urgently, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Chen. The defensive fleet is moving to intercept us. They think we've been captured or destroyed." On the communication screen, Admiral Chen's face was grim with determination. "All ships prepare to engage the devourer. The new soul has either been destroyed or compromised. We cannot allow that creature to reach the colonies." "Admiral, wait," Daeho said, opening his own channel. "The situation has changed. The devourer is not our enemy. Captain Lee, you are clearly under the influence of some alien technology. All ships, ignore any communications from the new soul and proceed with the attack." Daeho realized with horror that the Admiral would not listen. The military fleet was preparing to attack a creature that was finally healing, finally remembering its true nature. The assault would not only destroy any chance of peace, but it would likely drive the devourer back into madness. "Soo-jin, can we communicate with the creature directly? Warn it about the approaching fleet?" "I think so. The connection is getting stronger as it heals." Daeho composed his thoughts carefully, then spoke aloud while Soo-jin translated his words into the energy patterns the creature could understand. "Great Keeper, there are ships coming that mean you harm. They do not understand what you truly are. We want to help you, but you must trust us." The response came immediately. The devourer's energy patterns showed gratitude mixed with determination. It understood the danger, but it also understood that these small beings had given it something precious, the first taste of hope it had experienced in millennia. The creature began moving, but not toward the approaching fleet. Instead, it positioned itself protectively near the new soul, as if it were trying to shield them from the coming battle. "It's protecting us," Woo-sung said in amazement. No, Deho corrected, watching the creature's careful movements. It's protecting the first friendship it's had in thousands of years. As the military fleet approached, ready for a battle that would likely destroy any chance of healing the galaxy's greatest wound, Deho prepared to make the most important speech of his life. He had to convince trained warriors to put down their weapons and trust in the power of compassion. The fate of both the Keeper and the galaxy hung in the balance, and time was running out. Captain Lee Deho watched the tactical display with growing anxiety. Admiral Chen's battle fleet was approaching fast, 23 warships armed with the most powerful weapons the galaxy could produce. In just minutes, they would open fire on the Keeper, destroying any chance of healing the ancient creature. "Captain," Communications Officer Yoon Bora said urgently, "Admiral Chen is refusing all our transmissions. He's ordered a communications blackout." Dr. Park Soo-jin looked up from her science station with desperate eyes. "The Keeper is trying to understand why more ships are coming. It's confused and starting to show signs of stress. If it panics, the healing process could reverse." Engineer Kim Tae-woo was working frantically at his controls. "I'm trying to restart the fabricators, but they need at least an hour to cool down before we can make more synthetic nutrients." The Keeper's massive form shifted nervously as it sensed the approaching fleet. Its tendrils, which had been gently exploring the space around the new Sol, began to pull back and take defensive positions. The peaceful blue-green glow along its hull started flickering back toward the sickly yellow color they had seen before. "It's scared," Navigator Oh Hae-jin realized. After thousands of years of being attacked, it expects these ships to try to hurt it. Deho made a decision that would either save the day or doom them all. "Soo-jin, can you establish a direct neural link with the Keeper? Something stronger than just energy pulses?" "It's possible, but extremely dangerous. If the creature's mind is still partially corrupted, the link could drive you insane." "Do it anyway. We need to calm it down before the fleet arrives." Soo-jin worked quickly to modify their communication array. "Captain, this is going to feel very strange. You'll be directly connected to an alien consciousness that's existed for millions of years." Deho nodded and placed his hand on the neural interface Soo-jin had prepared. Immediately, his mind was flooded with sensations beyond human understanding. He felt the vast loneliness of eons spent wandering through space, the confusion of corrupted programming, and the desperate hunger for something his infected systems could never properly identify. But underneath all that pain, he found something beautiful. The Keeper's original nature was still there, buried but not destroyed. It was like finding a perfect flower growing in poisoned soil. Through the neural link, Deho began to share his own memories. He showed the Keeper what it felt like to cook for people you cared about, the satisfaction of nurturing others, the simple joy of creating something that brought happiness. These human experiences resonated with the creature's original programming, strengthening the healing process. "Captain," Medical Officer Choi Woo-sung called out with concern, "your vital signs are spiking. The neural strain is enormous." "I'm fine," Deho managed to say, though sweat was pouring down his face. Through the link, he could feel the Keeper's confusion about the approaching ships. He tried to explain that not all humans understood what the creature truly was. The Keeper responded with images of its own past experiences with military fleets. Every encounter had ended in violence and pain. The creature was preparing to defend itself, which would mean returning to its role as a destroyer. "No," Deho said both aloud and through the neural link. "Let me show them what you really are." Working through Soo-jin, Deho managed to access the ship's external communications array through the neural connection. What he did next had never been attempted in galactic history. He broadcast the Keeper's memories directly to Admiral Chen's fleet, sharing the creature's true nature with hundreds of military personnel at once. The effect was immediate and stunning. Across the battle fleet, hardened soldiers and experienced officers suddenly understood what they were really facing. They saw the Keeper's original purpose, felt its pain and loneliness, and witnessed the corruption that had twisted it into a destroyer. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communications, shaken and uncertain. "All ships, hold position. Do not fire. I repeat, hold position." Through the neural link, Deho felt the Keeper's amazement. For the first time in thousands of years, a military force had stopped its attack. The creature began to understand that not all encounters had to end in violence. "Admiral," Deho said, his voice strained from maintaining the neural connection, "the The creature is infected with some kind of parasitic programming. But we can help it heal. We just need time and the right materials. Sujin was monitoring the keeper's bio-readings. Captain, the synthetic nutrients we gave it are breaking down the parasitic code, but very slowly. We need something more powerful. Wusong had an idea. What if we could synthesize the original food sources the keeper remembers? Use its own memories as a recipe? That's brilliant, Taewoo said, already working on modifications to the fabricators. If we can cool the systems enough, we might be able to create exact replicas of what it used to eat. Through the neural link, Daeho asked the keeper to share its memories of proper nourishment. The creature's response was eager and grateful. It began transmitting detailed information about the energy sources and materials that had sustained its kind for millions of years. Working together, the crew of the New Soul and the technical teams from Admiral Chen's fleet began preparing the most important meal in galactic history. They synthesized rare elements that existed only in the galactic core, created energy patterns that matched ancient stellar phenomena, and combined them in ways that would nourish the keeper's true nature, while destroying the parasitic infection. First batch is ready, Taewoo announced. Beginning dispersal now. The effect on the keeper was dramatic. As the proper nutrients flowed from both the New Soul and several ships in the fleet, the creature's corruption began breaking down rapidly. The twisted growths on its hull straightened and took on beautiful organic patterns. Its movements became graceful and purposeful rather than violent and random. Most importantly, its mind began to clear. Through the neural link, Daeho felt the creature's personality emerging from thousands of years of confusion and pain. It was gentle, wise, and filled with an overwhelming love for all living things. Captain, Sujin said with wonder in her voice. It's working. The parasitic code is breaking down completely. The keeper is remembering who it really is. As the healing process continued, the keeper began to communicate more clearly with both Daeho and the assembled fleet. It shared knowledge of technologies that could restore dead worlds, showed them techniques for encouraging life in harsh environments, and offered to help repair the damage it had caused during its infected millennia. The galaxy's greatest destroyer was becoming its greatest gardener once again, and it all started with one human, who offered food and friendship instead of weapons and fear. 6 months after the day that changed galactic history, Captain Lee Daeho stood on the observation deck of the New Soul, watching something that would have been impossible to imagine just a short time ago. The keeper, fully healed and restored to its original purpose, was gently tending to a dying star system. Massive tendrils that had once destroyed worlds now carefully guided streams of healing energy toward barren planets. Where the keeper worked, dead worlds began to bloom with new life. Atmosphere generators grew from the creature's own biological systems, creating breathable air on planets that had been lifeless for centuries. It's remarkable, Dr. Park Sujin said, joining him at the observation window. The keeper has restored 14 star systems in just 6 months. Planets that were nothing but rock and ice are now supporting entire ecosystems. Navigator Ohaye Jin approached with a data tablet in her hands. Captain, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council wants to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Keeper. 3 different species have requested its help in restoring their homeworlds. Engineer Kim Tae-woo looked up from his maintenance work with a grin. And here I thought repairing ship engines was complicated. That thing is rebuilding entire solar systems like it's gardening. The bridge doors opened and Communications Officer Yun Bo-ra entered with an excited expression.
Captain, you need to hear this.
The Keeper wants to speak with you directly. Daeho had maintained a neural link with the ancient creature ever since their first contact. The connection had grown stronger and clearer as the Keeper healed, allowing for complex conversations that amazed scientists throughout the galaxy. He placed his hand on the neural interface that Sujin had permanently installed on the bridge. Immediately, his mind was filled with the Keeper's presence, but instead of the pain and confusion he had first encountered, now there was only warmth, gratitude, and joy. Hello, friend Daeho. The Keeper's thoughts formed words in his mind. I wanted to thank you again for what you have given me. You don't need to thank me, Daeho replied through the link. We just gave you what every living thing deserves. Food, friendship, and understanding. You gave me much more than that. You gave me back myself. For the first time in thousands of years, I remember what it feels like to create instead of destroy, to nurture instead of consume. Through the neural connection, Deho could sense the keeper's deep contentment as it worked. The creature was doing what it was meant to do, what it loved to do. Every new world it brought to life filled it with purpose and happiness. I have learned much about your species during our time together, the keeper continued. Humans have a rare gift. Where other species see problems to be solved with force, you see individuals to be understood and cared for. Medical Officer Choi Woo-sung had joined them on the bridge and was monitoring the neural link to make sure Deho wasn't being strained by the connection. Vital signs are stable, Captain. The keeper's mental patterns are remarkably peaceful. Admiral Chen's voice came through the ship's communication system. The Admiral had become one of the strongest supporters of the new alliance between humans and the Keeper, though he admitted it had taken time to adjust his thinking. Captain Lee, the Council has approved your appointment as the first human Keeper liaison. Congratulations on your promotion. Deho felt a mix of pride and responsibility. His new job would involve traveling with the Keeper as it restored damaged worlds, helping to coordinate between the ancient creature and the various galactic governments that requested its assistance. There's something else, the Keeper said through the neural link. I have been alone for so long that I had forgotten what friendship felt like. But you and your crew have reminded me. I would like to offer you something in return. What did you have in mind? Deho asked, the Keeper's thoughts filled with excitement. I would like to teach your people the art of cosmic gardening. There are techniques for encouraging life, for healing damaged ecosystems, for creating harmony between different species, knowledge that could help humanity become guardians and protectors, as you have shown you can be. Sujin's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity. The learning opportunities would be incredible. We could help restore Earth's damaged environments, terraform new worlds for colonization, maybe even prevent ecological disasters before they happen. But first, the Keeper continued, I would like to share a meal with you, not the synthetic nutrients you created to heal me, but real food, the kind you make with care and love. I've been curious about this human custom of cooking for friends. Deho smiled, remembering his days as a chef. I think I can arrange that, though I've never cooked for someone quite your size before. Size does not matter when the intention is pure, the Keeper replied with what Deho could only describe as cosmic laughter. Over the following weeks, the new Sol became the site of the most unusual dinner party in galactic history. Using the ship's fabricators and the Keeper's own biological systems, they created a feast that satisfied both human tastes and the creature's cosmic appetite. The meal lasted for 3 days, during which the Keeper shared stories of the galaxy's ancient history, while Deho and his crew told tales of human culture and cuisine. Other ships from across the galaxy came to witness the celebration, and many species sent representatives to join the feast. As the celebration ended, the Keeper began its work on a new project. It had chosen a dead star system near Earth to restore as a gift to humanity. The work would take years, but when finished, it would be a garden world of incredible beauty, a place where humans could learn the arts of cosmic gardening. You know, Taewoo said as they watched the Keeper begin its delicate work, when we started this journey, I thought we were crazy, flying straight toward the galaxy's most dangerous creature, with nothing but good intentions and a meal. Sometimes the craziest ideas are the ones that work, Hyojin replied. Deho placed his hand on the neural interface one more time. Through the connection, he felt the Keeper's contentment as it began nurturing new life. The creature that had once been the terror of the galaxy was now its most dedicated gardener, and it had all started with someone choosing compassion over conflict. Thank you, the Keeper said through the link, for showing me that even after thousands of years of darkness, it is never too late to remember who you truly are. As the new Sol prepared to accompany the Keeper on its next mission of restoration, Deho reflected on the simple truth his grandmother had taught him long ago. The way to solve any problem was to feed people properly. It turned out that wisdom applied not just to humans, but to cosmic entities as well. The galaxy was a safer, more hopeful place, and it all began with one human who offered food and friendship to the most fearsome creature imaginable. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from the strongest weapons, but from the gentlest hearts.